It is the greatest rivalry in college football. Heck, it's the greatest rivalry in college athletics. You know what? It's the greatest rivalry in all of sports. I know I'm biased, so I try not to be. However, it is the greatest rivalry in all of sports. Here we are, Ohio State, Michigan. Why are we talking Buckeyes and Wolverines? Reason we're talking Ohio State and Michigan, and for you Michigan fans, Michigan, Ohio State, the reason? It's because you guys are talking about it every day. So we are just joining the fun and possibly bringing a little structure to the conversation tonight. Appreciate you all being here at the Voice of College Football. As we like to say, hopefully you agree. Best discussion, debate, and analysis, breaking down the game we all love each and every day with you. Here we go. So we want to talk Ohio State and Michigan for a number of reasons on this fine Thursday evening. And we have left a link in the chat. We have also left the link. You know, it's important when I remember to leave the link also in the description section of the video. Wow. That doesn't happen very often, but man, I am primed for this one. So being on Twitter/X as often as I am, I come across all sorts of ridiculous arguments concerning all sorts of sports topics. At least those are fun. At least those don't really matter. At least those are supposed to be fun. Unfortunately, there's a lot of debate concerning more important things in life that are a bit alarming. But we'll stick to sports and college football, and we'll stick to this rivalry, because for as much as it is our intent here at the Voice of College Football to cover all of college football and to not favor any particular program, any particular team, to cover all of them equally, hang on, we cover everyone equally except for two main components. Number one would be the wins and the losses. The contending teams drive what we do, of course. We're not covering Stanford when they're going 3-9. Nobody cares. Nobody wants to hear it. That's just the way of the world. You're going to cover the games, the teams that matter. And then number two, who's popular? So in addition to the winning, which usually equals popularity as well, but not always, that we will continue to cover based on what you would like to see and hear about. And there is no question here, the Voice of College Football, that while the aim and the goal and the mission is to cover college football equally and better than anyone else, so if there was a way to find out what is the true representation of college football nation out there, meaning out of every 100 college football fans, and when I say fans, I mean fans like you. I mean fans that are hardcore, fans that are here in the middle of February wanting more college football coverage. So you who are on digital media all the time, looking at past games, looking at recruiting rankings, just absorbing as much as you possibly can. True hardcore college football fans, not the person that watches 3 games a year. It's out of true college football fans, the type that will stop by and hang out with us here. What is the representation of the fan base out there? Because most college football fans, sadly enough, don't know that we're here at the Voice of College Football. But I would love to represent our coverage based on college football nation. So out of every 100 college football fans, if 8 of them are Michigan fans, then that should be proportionate to our coverage. And 7 are Ohio State fans and 5 are USC fans, and on down the line. But we are weighted heavily toward Ohio State and Michigan fans. There's no doubt about that. And sorry, Ohio State and Michigan fans, we would love to even that out. We would like to even that out. So for you college football fans who root for other teams, please bring your friends, your family, your acquaintances, your enemies. Bring them all. Bring them in here. Not that we don't want more Ohio State and Michigan fans, because we do. So, couple intent here in what we would like to get after tonight, in addition to just having fun, lively debate and discussion. And again, I've left the link both in the description section and in the chat for anyone who would like to call, but it's got to be about Ohio State and Michigan. And you're probably thinking at this point, we don't know what to call about. What's the point of all this? There's a lot of points to this. So first and foremost, let's understand and recognize something, that I am in this greatest rivalry in sports. I am honoring the owner of the rivalry currently. So I went to great lengths to select my wardrobe today. And hail to the victors and hail to the champions of the West. So the 2023 national champions, I salute you. So Michigan owns the rivalry. They own college football right now. They are the champions. Their head coach is an NFL coach right now, but they are the champions of college football. So they own the bragging rights. They own the rivalry. Currently, they own the current debate, but there's a past debate. We'll delve into that. And more importantly, there's a future to discuss. So before we get to the future and where these programs sit in the off-season chess match and fight and struggle to get better and to position themselves for 2024 and beyond, let's go to social media. Let's see what we've got here. So this was partially the impetus to this program, but really the main reason we're here is I want to hear from all of you in regards to what can we do here at the Voice of College Football to provide you with the best Ohio State coverage and the best Michigan coverage possible. And then beyond that, more importantly to this discussion, is how can we provide the best coverage of the war, the battle? That's what the Skull Session is all about. What do you want to see here pertaining to the rivalry and the competition between the two, whether that is 50 years ago or today or projecting toward the future? Whether you want to see comparisons of recruiting rankings, you want to see which school has performed better in recruiting in state or in the other state, or what we provided a few days ago when we matched up the two teams and the two programs over the last 3 seasons. And of course, Michigan won that decidedly because of 3 games. So Michigan owns the rivalry. And I wanted to give you a look into what we're attempting to do here at the Voice of College Football. And that's in addition to everything else we do. So keep in mind, over the past few days, we've posted videos about USC, Tennessee, and a lot of other teams. I just finished up a discussion with a writer from The Advocate covering LSU football, and it was one of the most informative discussions I've had on a particular team in a long time. So we cover everyone. I've had discussions over the last few days, Auburn, Alabama, on down the line. So we continue to cover everybody. But when it pertains to this rivalry, I would love to know what you guys would like for me in particular to take on. And again, a couple days ago, we posted a comparison of Ohio State and Michigan circa 2021, 22, and 23. And then also offered up, hey, we would love to do these comparisons if you have interest. Any two programs, any time frame. But I use that as an example. So content, we would love to know what you want to see because we are going to deliver it. I guess maybe too often I post what I'm interested in and what I want to do and what I like. And if we continue to do that, we won't have a channel for very long because I am not the typical college football individual fan. That's obvious. The Amazon link's in the description section of all the videos. And here's the deal with the Amazon link. It functions exactly as the link that you are using now. Exactly. And if it doesn't, I want to hear about it, because we have tested this with a zillion different people. And the Amazon link in the description section of all the videos, please grab it, use it, and it helps grow and build the channel. Got a Big Ten live show coming up on Friday night at 7 p.m. Eastern time as well. Before I get to some of these social media posts, and I'd like to get to the news of the week, both in the Ohio State camp and the Michigan camp. Moose, Ohio State fans, deflection. Start bringing up asterisks. Okay. I don't know what that pertains to exactly. Asterisks right now could be currently that Michigan's national championship is still kind of hanging in the balance. Some people could argue until an NCAA investigation is finalized. I don't believe that NCAA investigation is going to in any way challenge Michigan's current national championship. So, Michigan fans, I believe you have nothing to worry about. And for the good of college football, I don't want anything else to come out. I want Jim Harbaugh to be clean. I want his staff to be clean. I want everyone involved, past Connor Stallions, and the one linebacker coach who told and instructed players to lie to the NCAA. I want everyone else to be clean. That's what I want. That's what I want, but I also want justice to be served. So let's put it this way. I want all crime in the United States to stop immediately, but that's not happening. So we know what the reality is. So I want justice to be served. Other asterisks would be the 2010 Ohio State Big Ten Championship, which I count. I'm sorry, I count it. I am not going to take a Big Ten championship away in a 12-1 season with a Sugar Bowl win from Ohio State in 2010 because 5 players sold their little trinkets and awards for tattoos. That had nothing to do with what happened on the field. It went up against NCAA guidelines and rules. Therefore, it was a violation, but it was not a football-related violation. Meaning, for me, we got 3 categories of violations. We have the criminal acts that are against the law, that are immoral. We know what those have been. The classic case is Jerry Sandusky and Penn State. Those go way beyond sports. Those are horrific and need to be dealt with severely and harshly. So that's one category. Next category would be football-related cheating. So what Connor Stallions did, and we will find out if there's more to it than that, but what Connor Stallions did, what other programs have done through the years to cheat, whether that's to cheat in keeping players eligible so that they can perform on the field, even though they're not passing classes, they're not going to class, they're being paid under the table, all those things. So that is cheating to win on the field. And then there's a third category of cheating that involves basically conduct that does not relate to the field. And that's where I would put the Ohio State infractions in 2010. The NCAA guidelines at the time were silly, but they were guidelines and they were rules that were violated. But I'm not taking away a Big Ten championship and a 12-1 season from Ohio State for that. Asterisks. Any other beyond that? You'll have to remind me any others beyond that. Those are the ones I know of, Moose. There you go. So there's one currently with Michigan, potentially. There's one with Ohio State in 2010. That, I believe, is the only thing that has tainted the Big Ten championship count between Ohio State and Michigan. Oh my goodness. This is one that based on what I know of the situation, and I probably should go back and reacquaint myself with it. The one that Todd's bringing up in North Carolina, I have no idea why that did not turn out to be a bigger deal than it was. Cheating with classes, no real penalty. Exactly. Although we're not dealing with North Carolina tonight. 19 national championships, 45 conference championships. Does that say 19 national championships? Is this an Alabama and Michigan fan combined or something? Am I reading that correctly? I don't even know what that pertains to. 19 national championships? Who has 19 national championships? Anyway, 45 conference championships. Ohio State will be investigated here soon. Don't worry, Ryan Day is backed into a corner. Okay. I'm not worried about it. It has nothing to do with me. So I'm not worried about it, but I don't know what, I am not hearing anything that is directed toward Ryan Day. Claimed and unclaimed. Well, fortunately, 19 and I can't even respond to your your YouTube handle. It takes too long. It takes like 45 minutes for me to spit it out. 19 national and 45 conference championships. We have gone through the national championships. Actually, at this point last season, we had gone through, I believe, from 2022 at the time, all the way back through 1970. I think we made it. Maybe we just went through the 80s. We got to pick it up in the 70s. I got to pick that up. Because understand, this is one of the most annoying topics to me in college football. Past national championships. They're not equitable. They're not fair. They weren't properly evaluated and judged. So you know what? I take it upon myself, with the help of you, to reevaluate all the national championships, because I just don't take them for what they are. I'm not going to have a bunch of sports writers in 1942 or in 1973 or in 1996 tell me who won the national championship when many of their votes are extremely questionable, when their knowledge extremely questionable, and the outcome of these national, I'll put it in quotes, national championships is very flawed, extremely flawed. Just look at 1997. Nothing wrong with the conclusion there. That was the right conclusion. That's the only conclusion that any reasonable person could come to, is that both Nebraska and Michigan earned a national championship, so it had to be split. But in 1994, Penn State should have a national championship. We did a comparison the other day and posted it between, it was requested to compare Penn State and Michigan since the Nittany Lions joined the Big Ten in 1993. Okay. And in 1994, Penn State should claim a national championship. They earned a national championship in 1994 as much as anybody else did. They were playing in arguably the best conference in college football, and they went undefeated. They are the national champion. Not the national champion. They are a national champion in 1994. Just like Nebraska is. I would be saying the same thing about Nebraska if they were ripped off of a national championship. So talk about asterisks that had to be implemented. Whoever made that comment, I believe it was Moose. I did that for Penn State in that video. The national championship count since Penn State joined the Big Ten is Michigan 2, Penn State nothing. That is the official count. But you know what? The official count sucks. It's flawed. It's determined by a lot of intelligent, well-meaning, football-savvy, insightful, proper perspective people, but also a bunch of morons. So that combination of both and a flawed system presented a national champion, but ripped off Penn State. So since Penn State joined the Big Ten, they've won a national championship in my book. All right, folks. I appreciate Mike 3883, one of our great loyal supporters here at the Voice of College Football, says do a top 10 controversy video between the two teams. Okay. Do me a favor, Mike, and put that somewhere where I will get it. Write that to a comment to a video, because this chat is going to fly by and be gone. So, Mike, I would appreciate it if you would take that, just copy and paste that, and respond to any video. I'll find it. Thank you for that. So, top 10 controversy video between the two teams. That's a good one. I like that one. I like that one. Edge goes to Michigan. I don't know what that pertains to. 1985 Michigan should have the championship. Should have what championship? Aaron, please explain. Please give me a call. 1985 Michigan, they finished number 2 in the country, yes. Oklahoma went, wait a minute. Oklahoma lost a game, then beat Penn State in the Orange Bowl, correct? I don't believe Oklahoma went undefeated. No, Penn State was undefeated going into the Orange Bowl. Oklahoma beat Penn State 25-10 to win the national championship, or be voted the national champion. But Michigan lost a game and they tied a game. So no national championship for Michigan in 1985. John is telling us that Air Nolan is counting down the days till the game. Well, I'm hoping that Air Nolan is just counting down the days until spring practice. That would be more accurate and probably a more worthy cause for him to count down the days to spring practice, or maybe to his next workout. Do that. Okay. So we've got some news to run down today on both sides. And notice I went down the middle, since our colors here at the Voice of College Football are red, black, and silver, that I didn't want to go in any one direction. So we went with a black tonight. Okay. I'm cutting this straight in every such way. I've taken that much detail to it. So first and foremost, I received an email today, and this is how I found out. Oh my goodness, YouTube hit me with so much stuff today. There we go. This came in from the media at the College Football Playoff. I don't know how I got on this mailing list, but the College Football Playoff Committee sends me emails along with probably 500 other people. So the College Football Playoff Committee, the management committee, has appointed University of Michigan Athletics Director Ward Manuel as selection committee chair for the 24 football season. How about that? It was announced today by Bill Hancock, executive director of the CFP. Manuel replaces Boo Corrigan, the athletics director at NC State, and the ever so popular Boo Corrigan in the state of Florida, who served as chair for the past 2 seasons. Hancock also announced that the management committee was appointed Patrick Chun, AD at Washington State, Randall McDaniel, former All-American defensive lineman from Arizona State University, of course, Minnesota Vikings, Gary Pinkel, longtime head coach at Missouri and Toledo, Mac Rhodes, athletic director at Baylor, Carla Williams, AD at the University of Virginia, and Hunter Urachek, AD at the University of Arkansas, to the CFP selection committee. So committee changes every year. And so that's sometimes given as an excuse of why their decisions and their thought process would change. But their mission and their tenets have not changed. So these same people should be using the same criteria to select playoff teams. We got our first call of the night. We got Nick on the line. Nick, what's going on?
Not much, Mark. How's it going?
I'm doing just fine.
So you mentioned like things. So is this like a new series then? I've been listening for a few minutes, but I don't think since the beginning. So it's Skull Session. But
So there are a lot of things I wanted to hit tonight. One would be what's going on with the two programs right now. I've got a list of Michigan coaching changes, of course, on the coaching staff since Harbaugh left and is taking half the team with him. So there's that. There is on the Ohio State side, Ryan Day met with the media yesterday, and we have been posting videos and live streams on our Buckeye show in particular today about all that was said there. But I wanted to dive a little bit deeper, especially since newly appointed offensive coordinator Bill O'Brien may be headed to Boston College, and Ohio State will have to start all over in a search for an offensive coordinator. And then, of course, we're always going to match up the past. It's always fun. At least I have fun matching up various statistical categories, but more so about the future and more so about, yes, what content ideas would you guys like to see concerning these two programs?
yeah, you could do. Oh shoot! It just left me. I just had an idea. Crap! It literally was. I'm
I
sorry.
talked too long.
No. It's okay. I'm trying to think. It's something you did recently, like very recently, within like the last month.
So while you're thinking of that, one thing I've done, and I matched up Miami and Florida State, I matched up Ohio State and Michigan, and then I let people know that any comparison that they want me to make between two schools over any time frame they want, I will do that.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that would be cool. I'd definitely watch that. This is a little bit. This isn't like as important. It's kind of a funny thing. You posted a video of a fight between Michigan fans and Ohio State fans on social media, and you were going
I
through.
say that all the time, and actually, the one I chose wasn't even anywhere close to the best or the funniest that I've
Yeah.
ever seen. But I just, on that particular day, thought, you know what, I'm going to cover this. It's pretty ridiculous. This is where this has gone. It's gone to the point where Ohio State fans are piling on Michigan fans because they thought Aiden Hutchinson had a bad NFC Championship game.
Yeah. Yeah, that's right.
It's pathetic.
That's right. I mean, he didn't have a great game. Didn't they have like the worst collapse in what is it, NFC Championship history or something
Well, they're
like
up
that?
by 17. I would have to think that went through, but it certainly was one of the worst ever. I don't know that he was completely responsible for that.
No.
I I just think if we're going to that extreme, I shouldn't complain, and I'm not complaining because it's those same knuckleheads that do things like that that watch these shows and videos and that are that intense that helps drive what I do as well. So I shouldn't complain, and I'm not complaining. I just find it utterly absurd that people argue about those things and waste their time. I just think many of these people would be better served reading a new book, or I don't know, putting a fresh coat of paint on their bedroom, or maybe getting more exercise or something.
Yeah, I don't know. I just, like I said, it's a kind of a lighthearted thing. You probably shouldn't do it, obviously, all the time. You know that, but it was. I normally don't like chuckle out loud at videos unless they're pretty funny. But you posting something about you posting the actual tweets on your video kind of made the argument come to life a little bit, and it was just like, just why? Like it bleeds over into the NFL, of course. The Detroit Lions got Michigan fans and Ohio State fans going at each other's throats.
Oh, I've got some more examples. They're just waiting to be shown on the screen here.
I don't think the Super Bowl will cause a breakout. Do you? I know there's some Michigan players, there's some Ohio State players, a Bosa kid, but I can't think of any potential storyline there.
Yeah, I really don't know. Who do we have for Michigan? We've got Joey Bosa, we got Chase Young.
Mike Donna, I think.
Okay.
I think he's still on the D line for the Chiefs. Yeah, you said Bosa, Chase Young. I'm trying to think. I know there's some others, but I don't think they're as
Let me see here. So I'm sure the chat will help us out. I'm looking at the Chiefs roster, and I see, yes,
Ronnie Bell.
Mike Donna, a defensive end from Michigan, 4 years in the league.
Which is
And
wild. He was a transfer from the MAC. I don't know if you remember that.
I was going to say, I got to admit, I try to remember everyone. I do not remember him.
He played in 2019. He only played at Michigan for 1 year, so that's probably why you didn't. It was near the end of the Don Brown era. But he trying to look at what. Yeah, he transferred from Central Michigan. And he only played like a year or two at Michigan. He was number 4.
1 year at Michigan. That was in 2019. He had 38 tackles and 3 sacks.
Yeah.
No wonder I don't remember him. Okay.
Seems like he's doing well in the pros, though. So
yeah, good for him.
I was surprised by that. But you know what? The thing is, and that's not to get too into the weeds here, but Don Brown had, if you go look at the talent that he had, man, I mean, his scheme, it's like, dude, adjust a little bit. Like, my goodness. He wasted, I guess I wouldn't say wasted, but it's just too predictable in what he was doing. If you go back and look at the players that came through there, Josh Uche, Jabril Peppers, Devin Bush, bunches of others, and it was definitely didn't get the most out of them. But did you I don't know if you checked this out, but Michigan interviewed Wink Martindale, I guess.
Yeah, I was going to mention that. Yep.
What do you think about that?
Well, I've always heard good things about Wink Martindale, besides, the chuckling the first few times I heard his voice or heard his name. I don't know if anybody's over the age of, a certain age. They think of Wink Martindale as the guy that was the host of Tic-Tac-Toe and a bunch of other game shows. That's what I attribute Wink Martindale. So the first time I ever heard his name, and probably about 5 times after that, a lot of people my age laughed, but I'm used to it now. But I've always heard great things about his abilities, but I've not done any kind of deep dive on Wink Martindale's defenses.
Yeah, so he there's several Wink Martindales. I don't think his first name's Wink. I think it's Don, technically. I don't even know why they call him Wink. Yeah, I'm looking at a different Wink Martindale, so now I'm getting confused. But yeah, this is getting weird real quick. I think they're bringing him in because they wanted to, with Sharon Moore. From what I've heard, Sharon Moore really doesn't want, or he's going to be busy enough on the offensive side, and just as a head coach, kind of getting his feet wet because he's only 37 or 38 years old. So I think they're trying to get a more experienced guy in there who can call plays, and also keep the system the same, because that's the DC that Mike McDonald, Jesse Minner, I think Zach Orr came up under. So, and he was, from what I remember, he was good in the NFL. He the last season he had with the Ravens was not great. But also he's like 60 years old and his contract was expiring. So I think they were just ready to move on. And then his stint with the Giants, people complained a lot about him blitzing too much and it didn't work out and whatever. I don't know. The Giants suck, so I'm not going to hold it too much against him. I mean, everyone's like, oh my gosh, like Wink Martindale, he blitzed so much, this year with the Giants and everything. And and you compare him to Mike McDonald, who learned under him, and Mike McDonald didn't blitz at all. And it's like, well, look at the defensive line talent they have. Mike McDonald didn't have to. So I don't know. Just kind of like, I don't know if you remember this, but when Jesse Minner got hired, I saw a few Ohio State fans being like, oh my gosh, Michigan went and hired the Vanderbilt DC. So situation matters, talent matters.
I think that
Well, Well, I'm not saying that was wrong. I'm just saying, look how it turned out. So.
Oh yeah, it's a dumb claim to make, to say, oh, it's the Vandy defensive coordinator, therefore he sucks. No, but at the same time, all fan bases would make the same statement.
Yeah, I understand it, but it was just kind of funny the way that worked out. Would you consider him the? Let me ask you this, because where do you think this team ranks defensively as a national title in the CFP era? And you can combine coaching into that as well, because I'm assuming you consider Jesse Minter elite.
Yes.
Okay. So
Absolutely, he is. Best defenses during the CFP era.
Or how would this defense stack up, do you think,
Yeah,
against some of the other ones you have up there?
high. 2015 Alabama, 2017 Alabama, 2018 Clemson. I think and of course the Georgia defense in 21 in particular, 22 to a certain extent, and Michigan. Those are the best defenses, unless I miss somebody during the CFP era. Those are about the 5 best defenses out of the 10 that won national championships and any other defenses.
Yeah, I've had this argument with some people, or just not really an argument, but just some back and forth comments, people picking out like, okay, well, like, would Michigan beat some of the previous Clemson teams and whatnot? But I thought a pretty interesting one was 2019 LSU, or 2020. Is it 2019 or 2020 LSU? Yeah. I think in the CFP era, statistically, isn't that defense like one of the worst?
One of the worst. Yes.
And they had like first rounders on there, but especially early that season, I remember that defense not being.
That was the point I was about to make. The overall stats might be a bit misleading because they were playing much better on the stretch drive.
Well, is it Jehu Chason? He was a first rounder. Patrick Queen.
Patrick Queen.
He's on the Ravens. He was a first rounder. Did they have Stingley then?
Derek Stingley? He should have been on that team. Yes, I'll double check here. Derek Stingley, 24. Yes.
So yeah, I think that was a little bit. I agree with you that was a little bit misleading. They definitely rounded into form. So, and it definitely seemed like, I mean, you want to talk about a team having pixie dust. Some of those throws that Burrow made that season were not what I would say good throws, but he pulled it off and he did it over and over. But it is interesting because I do wonder how that team, like, could Michigan beat that team? I mean, I think they could, but yeah, I guess it kind of comes down to, Ohio State had CJ Stroud and 3 first-round wide receivers. So that's a first-round quarterback. And they had his first year, you guys had Chris Olave, Garrett Wilson, and Jackson Smith-Njigba.
Yep.
So there's 4 first. So I don't know how you think that compares to Joe Burrow, Chase, Terrace Marshall, and then the other guy, forget his name.
Yeah, Justin Jefferson.
Yeah, so I don't know how you'd compare those two groups. Although I don't know LSU's offensive line, how great it was then, so that would definitely be a factor. And then in 2021, Ohio State's defense was just really leaky, so I would definitely put. Well, let me ask you this: with CJ Stroud, if Ohio State, you substitute out what they had, their defense for 2021 and 2022, let's just say both years, you give them LSU's defense, do you think they win a title?
No, because I don't know that LSU's defense was quite that good. I don't think anyone was beating Georgia in 21. In 22, yeah, they probably are good enough then, considering they were one play away basically from winning the national championship in 22. And I think the discussion we're having right now is weighted more in Ohio State's favor. Not that it is, but more in Ohio State's favor than it would have been just a couple months ago, is because CJ Stroud has shown himself to be as good as he is in the NFL, whereas Joe Burrow has been amazing. We didn't know about Stroud just a couple months ago, and obviously there's more NFL proof for the LSU guys. Edwards Clyde-Hilaire was a really good running back, and they did have a good offensive line. And just to clarify, Derek Stingley was on that 2019 team, and as a freshman had 6 interceptions. Okay. That LSU team played one of the toughest schedules you're going to see.
The only caveat, have you went back and watched, or I don't even know if caveat's the right word, I'm sure it is, but have you gone back and watched that LSU-Alabama game since?
No.
Okay. I don't think LSU was the better team. They won the game, but Tua Tagovailoa, whatever his name is.
Yeah.
He had his ankle was all kinds of messed up, and that roster was just disgustingly loaded. Like, people talk about 2020 Alabama with who was the white quarterback?
Mac Jones.
Yeah, Mac Jones. That team was loaded. Man, you have a healthy Tua the year before. I do not think, and I know it's ifs and what ifs, but they were within a score. It was a 7-point game.
Yeah, and they lost by 5. They lost by 5. LSU was up big at halftime. They were up by 20 at one point in that game. I don't know if that was a true 5-point loss. Bama scored late to make it 46-41.
They did, and some could argue that's garbage time. I wouldn't, because there was still a chance. Like,
sure, I don't think it was garbage time.
No, and I think if anything, that just shows you the explosion. Because I remember that play. It was a single play down the field. And one play, long bomb, they threw it to Waddle, I think it was. And he scored. And I was just like, sat back. I was like, yep, they can do that. And he was wide open. Like, he blew by. And one of the reasons why I think that game was a little weird, the first drive of the game, Bama was marching down the field. Tua rolls out to his right, like plants his foot. I think it was the opposite foot of the bad ankle he had, so I can't blame it on that for sure. But he just fumbled the ball, just out of nowhere. Like, it was a worse fumble than, like, there was no contact. It was a worse fumble than in the Rose Bowl. Man, I'm forgetting all these guys' names.
So fumble in the Rose Bowl? This last Rose Bowl?
Yeah. Do you remember Michigan didn't get points out of it because they whiffed that field goal? But number 4, the quarterback, Mike Sainristil, I think, or no, it was Quentin Johnson, came off. I think he was blitzing, and he got a hold, or no, yeah, Mike Sainristil came after the quarterback. I don't know if he was a spy, but he kind of got at him, and then he rolled out to his left to avoid it, and then Quentin Johnson stripped the ball.
Yeah.
And then Josh Wallace. So, like, that was a bad fumble. All I'm saying is Tua's was way, way worse. Like, it was just the most fluky play. It was, like, on the first drive. And then not only that, but everyone was like, oh my gosh, LSU has this great passing attack, which they do. But if you think Bama was busting coverages in the Rose Bowl and Saban blamed it on, well, Michigan was huddling, which kind of sounds ridiculous until you actually go back and look at the all 22 or the copy where there's no commercials, because they were huddling and breaking out of that huddle like very quickly. It was a little bit unusual. So I kind of get it. But in that LSU Alabama game in 2019, that Alabama secondary, I don't know if I've ever seen like them just busting all the time. Like there was just guys wide open with just walking into the end zone. Like there was at least 3 just terrible. Like I don't know if it was a communication issue. Terrace Marshall, it was just a really simple route. I don't even know what kind of route you call it, but he came from one side of the field and kind of like diagonally made his way, kind of curved his way to the other side of the field. Just Joe Burrow threw an easy pass and he was wide open. It was kind of like in the Rose Bowl where Tyler Morris scored with JJ McCarthy. It would be kind of like that. It was a similar play like that, except if no defenders were near Tyler Morris. Like you didn't see any defenders on the screen. So I don't know. I don't know where I was going with all that, we were comparing Michigan to LSU, but that LSU team, I think that people talk about like the greatest team ever, or like, oh my gosh, they were so good. And they were good, but I think people romanticize that team a little bit. I absolutely think they were beatable.
Yeah, they had Clemson down. That was Clemson went up 10-0. Clemson also was within 3 sometime, maybe late third quarter, early fourth quarter before LSU scored a couple touchdowns to put it away. But, that LSU defense, again, the stats aren't good, but they played much better in the playoff and down the stretch in the regular season. They held Clemson to 25 points. They held Jalen Hurts in Oklahoma down. They scored a lot of garbage points that didn't matter.
Do they remind you a little bit like the essence of that defense? Does it remind you maybe a little bit of like Washington this last year, but like on steroids a little bit? Like not great statistically, but they just seem to make plays, critical moments that keeps their team
Sure.
close.
I'll take the steroid line for sure on that. Yeah,
yeah, because they had
LSU
first
defense
rounders.
is much better than this Washington defense.
That LSU defense in 2019 was not going to look that slow against Donovan Edwards like Washington did. But yeah, I actually that year was one of my favorite games as a Michigan fan. The semifinal, wasn't that the Fiesta Bowl with Ohio State and Clemson?
Oh, the 2019 game, yeah,
that was a wonderful game.
Yeah,
I had a lot of enjoyment watching that game. I remember it fondly. So I don't know if that's like a little bit dirty.
Well, of course you remember it fondly.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I remember that game. I go back and watch that game like probably 2-3 times a year. Full thing. I eat it up. And I will tell you, Mark, it was not a fumble.
Well, of course it was a fumble. There were a lot of bad calls in that game. We did a watch party, and our next caller, David, can certainly vouch for this. We did a watch party with probably 5 Clemson fans this past offseason, and they totally got it. They totally said, yeah, we get it. We get why Ohio State fans are that pissed off. We understand because, yeah.
Yeah, there were some.
It wasn't so much, Nick, that the calls were that bad. It's that every questionable call went Clemson's way. Every one.
Yeah. Well, you had a guy on within the last, I don't know, couple. It was actually just before the playoffs. Conspiracy theorist, Ohio State guy, I call him. But he was making some pretty good points about, I don't know, ESPN, like how all that. And realistically, I don't think, maybe there's some funky business going on, definitely some questions. But after I listened to him, I was really concerned because then I thought back and I was like, it does seem like, I know there hasn't been a ton of Big Ten teams in the playoffs, but there seems to have been some games where like teams not in the SEC got absolutely screwed. And so I was getting a little concerned, but then I don't know how you felt about this last playoff run. I actually kind of thought most of the calls went Michigan's way, which I was pretty surprised.
Yeah, somewhat in the championship game, some holding calls went their way.
Yeah, but even like some of the overturns, like in the Rose Bowl, like that first pick, I'll tell you, I was sitting on my couch with my family. That first pick he threw, obviously, of course, you're like, oh no, what are you doing? Like, why? JJ, why? Um, but then I was taking a look and I'm like, man, they called it as an interception on the field. It looks like he has a tiptoe, like it was close. And I'm like, there's no way. We know how this goes. They're going to stick with the call on the field. And they overturned it. And I was like, wow. Okay, maybe I'm just used to.
I thought it was pretty clear that he was out of bounds. I would have overturned it.
Maybe it's just my bias, because when you're watching your team in that setting, obviously you're not going to be totally thinking clearly. I was just extremely nervous. And like I said, I was a little bit paranoid based off of what that previous caller, how he broke it down, because it made a lot of sense. And I'm like, hey, man, if the refs have an opportunity, if this is real, if they can screw Michigan and they want to, there you go. You can just say, it's a call on the field. We would have, if it was the opposite call, we would have stuck with that. But then there was another call, and this didn't end in points. But JJ was rolling out to his right, and he threw a strike to Cornelius Johnson right on the edge of the sideline. And this one, I think, was closer. I don't know if you remember this, but his toe, they called it incomplete on the field. And you had to piece together angles. You couldn't see clearly from a single angle that his foot was inbounds and touching the grass. Like you had to actually piece, even from the viewers. And correct me if I'm wrong, but I think refs actually have like additional angles that they can use, right? Or no?
I always thought that they just had all the TV angles.
Okay. Well, yeah, maybe I'm wrong on that. But either way, you had to piece it together, because when the camera angle where you could see that his foot was 100% down was from the back and like kind of not centered in the field, but it wasn't along the sideline. So you could see his foot dragging, but you couldn't tell for sure based on where it was located that it was still in bounds. Now, from the front, you could see his foot looked like it was inbounds, but for some, I can't remember exactly the pictures, but you couldn't tell for sure.
Yeah, we might be losing a few people here
yeah.
by dissecting a foot angle on a catch. So,
Okay.
anything else, Nick?
Nope, that's it. Thanks for taking my call.
I appreciate it, Nick. Have a good one.
All right, thanks. Bye.
Let's keep it rolling here at the Voice of College Football. Again, our aim tonight is to talk about anything related to this rivalry. And we've got a number of things, and I'm going to take David's call here in 2 seconds. So just here in the last week, of course, Ward Manuel just announced today that he is the chair of the College Football Playoff Selection Committee. His school's under investigation right now, and they would make that decision now. Kind of strange. Of course, Jess Minter has left for the NFL with the Chargers to work for his buddy Jim Harbaugh. Wink Martindale being interviewed by Michigan right now, and the Dallas Cowboys. The Giants defensive coordinator, D-line coach Mike Elston joined Harbaugh with the Chargers as well. So Michigan looking for a defensive lineman coach. And we've got a tight ends coach in Steve Kasula, who's been hired from UMass. He worked for the Maize and Blue 2019, 20, and 21. Offensive line coach Grant Newsome, who's a longtime Michigan player and coach. He was elevated to offensive line coach under Sharon Moore, and Sharon Moore knows his trade. So that's a selection that he wanted to make there. And special teams coordinator J.B. Brown has been elevated after being an analyst of special teams over the last 3 seasons, and Jay Harbaugh, of course, moving to the NFL. All right, let's dig in with David Greenshield.
Yeah, the aforementioned, I believe.
Yes,
I can attest, as a person that watched the review of that 2019 playoff game between Clemson and Ohio State, I believe with Jordan Bowman, our old friend Jordan, and Bobby Durkins, I believe.
Yes.
We watched that game.
Yep.
correct me if I'm wrong, Mark, they admitted there were calls that went their way that weren't right. And they're lifelong Clemson fans. Let's just let the record be shown. You were there for it. I was there for it. They even admitted that, did they not, Mark?
Oh, absolutely. They admitted that those were either bad calls or excruciatingly difficult calls to take.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. You're absolutely right, too. Every questionable call went their way in that game. And Ohio State still, by the way, only lost on a last-second interception against the Clemson team.
Yeah, and I could take that a little bit more easily if it was an interception that was made because the DB made a great play,
Sure.
broke on the football, just outfought the receiver, but a communications issue, that was a complete gift. Either one of you or I could have been standing in the end zone and caught that football thrown right to us.
By the way, something about that 2019 season, think about the level of quarterback play that year. The top 6 teams in the country in 2019, the starting NFL quarterbacks were Joe Burrow, Trevor Lawrence, Jalen Hurts, Justin Fields, Justin Herbert, and Tua at Alabama. How good was the level of, I mean, you have 6 NFL starting quarterbacks on the top 6 teams in the country in 2019. Compare that to this year.
Yeah.
You know?
Well,
or is there a comparison?
We can't compare it to this year until we see these guys go into the NFL and play.
Okay.
You're forgetting Jay Patterson, of course. He's been pretty remarkable in his pro career.
I didn't see a Joe Burrow in college football this year. I got to be real with you, Mark.
No.
Or I didn't see a Trevor Lawrence even in college football this year, Mark. Got to be real with you.
The best quarterback I saw at his best was Michael Penix, although as a complete athlete and thrower of the ball, I still think Caleb Williams is the most talented out of all those guys. Bo Nix was probably the most consistent player, but he's not. I don't expect Bo Nix to be some outstanding quarterback in the NFL.
Yeah, I could see that. I could see that. Although I'm surprised you didn't say Daniels with the season he had, Mark.
Oh, I forgot about Daniels. I was stuck on the West Coast. Yeah, Jaden Daniels. Yeah, he played the position actually consistently the best. He would be consistently the best. Yes.
By the way, speaking of the rivalry, Ohio State that year in 2019 beats the team up north by 30 points on their field. And 2 years later, we lose by 2 touchdowns on their field. And that's what, like a 40-some point swing in 2 years. And the team up north fans tell me that's because they hired a strength coach and a new defensive coordinator. That's why a 40-some point swing happened in 2 years, Mark.
Well, David, we could go through all sorts of series in college football and find 40-point swings in the span of one season.
Yeah, but that's a pretty big disparity in a 2-year window. That's all I'm saying, Mark. And that's where I was going with. By the way, to the Walmart Wolverines fans out there, speaking of rewatches, we were supposed to do a rewatch of the JT Barrett spot game, and I was left at the altar. I'm willing to do it with any of the team up north fans.
Sure.
Shout out whenever you want to get together on that. I'm game. Mark, you, I believe, told me you had some YouTube issues or problems, but I'm game whenever they are. You let the Walmart fans, your largest fan base, know I'm available anytime they are to rewatch that game.
I think we can. I believe we can set up a live stream that won't be live. A live, well, it is a live stream, but a live stream behind the curtain, and we can leave YouTube completely out of it. Do it here on StreamYard. And when I say leave YouTube out of it, we're not broadcasting through YouTube. We would pull the game up from YouTube, and I believe we could bypass all that business.
Okay.
All those issues.
I mean, hey, it's your largest fan base, Mark. You probably can find somebody out there. Well, it's your largest fan base for now. We'll see in a few years when they go back to the days of 7-5, 8-4, aka the Rich Rod years. You know, and you know, they're maybe no longer your largest fan base. You know, we'll see if they're going to be game then. Because one would say, go ahead.
You're saying that in a very negative, pessimistic way. Not that I going to be gaining so many viewers from other teams to surpass them. You're talking about my audience dwindling because of the Michigan fans scattering.
Yeah.
I don't like that.
Well, I'm just saying, real fair weather fan base there, Mark. That's all I'm saying. A lot of fair weather fans there. I guarantee you, 2018, 2019. Are you saying that the team up north was your largest fan base in over in that period of time?
I don't believe so. No.
Okay. I'm just saying, you gained some fair weather fans over that period of time. I don't think that's beyond the realm of normality to say that.
Yeah,
So.
well, we'll see how it goes. First of all, they've got to start losing some games, and that's not happening.
Well, listen, they sold their soul for this season. They had a bunch of 30-year-olds play on their team to try and win their title. You know, they cheated, obviously. They had to hire the Stallions to win some big games finally. And all those 30-year-olds have now moved on and, you know, are going to go get drafted. And we'll see how good they are, you know, with this new coach. And by the way, you know, Jim Harbaugh, who, by the way, I think bears a resemblance to Larry Brown. I've equated him to Larry Brown of college. To me, he's kind of like a coaching nomad. Both Larry Brown and Harbaugh both coached in the NFL, both coached in college, and both kind of go from place to place over about a 6-year, 7-year period.
Larry Brown, though, he had a zillion stops.
Well, where are we with that with Harbaugh? San Diego State, Stanford, San Francisco, team up north, the Chargers. He's made the 5 moves within about 15, 16 years.
Well, he just coached at Michigan for 10 seasons, 9 seasons.
Okay, 9 seasons. And would have been gone after COVID, by the way, if once he went 0-6 against Ohio State, by the way.
But coaching anywhere for 9 seasons in this day and age is not being a nomad.
Well, I'm just saying, 6 jobs in what was that, 16, 17 years?
Yeah. And it's San Diego, by the way. It's not San Diego State.
Oh, okay. I stand corrected, San Diego.
But
well, he was only there for a short period of time.
Larry Brown. Oh, my goodness. I just had him. His run of jobs was crazy.
Now, to be fair to Larry, that's not an unflattering comparison because he won a championship in college and in the pros. You know, so.
Yeah.
You know, in Kansas and with the Pistons that year.
ABA, then NBA, Nuggets, UCLA, Nets, Kansas, Spurs, Clippers, Pacers, 76ers, Pistons, Knicks, Bobcats, SMU, and then whatever Auxilium Torino is, and then Memphis as an assistant.
Well, give Harbaugh 4 or 5 years. He's going to be gone from the Chargers, Mark. I don't think he's long for that job.
I don't think anybody's long for any jobs anymore, especially in the NFL.
Yeah, unless your name is Bill Belichick or Andy Reid.
How many coaches in the NFL have been around for at least 5 years? Harbaugh, Tomlin, Reid.
Well, Belichick was. Pete Carroll was.
Yeah.
And they were there for long periods of times. What's up?
3. I think that's anybody else.
How long's Kyle? Is this Kyle Shanahan's 5th year or 6th year with the?
Yeah, he's been there for a little while.
Yeah. I was thinking the Super
Zach
Bowl
Taylor.
coaches. Right. No, but I did want to say, as far as where we're at with things right now, and particularly with this rivalry, I will state, I think going forward is, well, first of all, Ohio State has put all their eggs into this basket for this particular season and, brought back a lot of players. And listen, I do think it's a make or break year. Bottom line, I think, this is a must win game. You can't lose 4 in a row, even though I do believe there was illegal activities involved in a couple of those wins. Maybe not this year, but in previous years.
I don't really understand what that means, David. So emotionally, I understand what you're saying about make or break season, make or break game, got to win. But if they don't, then what? What's that mean? Break it up like Day gets fired for sure.
Oh, no.
What?
Yeah, I think his job's on the line. I'll just say it. I'll say the not so quiet part out
could
loud.
be on the line. But if they go 11-1, lose to Michigan, and go to the playoffs and go to the national championship game, he's not getting fired.
Well, okay. You set the bar pretty high, though, Mark. I mean, if he goes to the national championship game, then you can make that case. I mean, if he goes to the championship
is he
game.
going to lose his job if they go to the national semifinals, if they win 2 playoff games and lose to Michigan and they're
Mark,
1?
That's 4 years in a row. And to be real with you, especially if this isn't going to be a very good team up north team. Let's be real. Even some of their fan base are planning for like 4 losses this year. So I don't want to hear any of that. And I've been one of those that stated, and like some of the people have said, Urban Meyer did not have to face as good a team up north teams as Ryan Day has faced, to be fair to him. I'm surprised you didn't retort to Steve Dace about that when he was talking about trying to find Ohio State new coaches. I mean, he keeps on bragging about how good his team is. I mean, wouldn't that be the reply? You'd say, well, isn't Day losing to better teams than Urban Meyer did?
Well, of course he is. I guess I've said that in a different way. I've basically said a number of times on his podcast that this is an unprecedented Ohio State, Michigan meeting at this point in regards to their levels of play with both programs since the mid 70s. They've never been at this zenith. Yeah, there's nothing that Ryan Day is doing outside of losing these 3 games to Michigan that is really that egregious. And I posted a video a couple weeks ago. I compared the 2 teams over these 3 seasons, and that's the only thing that Michigan's done is win these 3 games. And well, that's everything. I get it, but there's not that much wrong with Ohio State.
Well, yeah, I mean, their fan base has to know between 1997 and 2021, there's a lot of mediocrity to garbage in there.
Yeah.
I mean, let's just be real. There is. They had that one team in 06 that was undefeated that came into Columbus, and, both teams, and to be fair, Tressel probably faced the second best team of the Lloyd Carr era. Maybe even that actually, you could make a case that 06 team was almost as talented, if not more talented, than their 97 team, Mark.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
And the other thing that should be highlighted about the 97 team is that was a team, meaning that year was a particular team that was that good at Michigan. That was not like the program was steamrolling 11-1, 11-1, 11-1, and then won a national championship. No, that was an isolated year.
Right. Well, why do you think I'm so upset about 93, 95, and 96? We lost to mediocre teams. I mean, those were 3 lost teams we lost to in 93, 95, and 96. They were no good, And we were clearly, better teams going into those games, weren't we?
Oh, yeah.
I don't want to go to the
95 and 6 for sure, especially 96. Sure. 96 for sure. And, of course, tripped up against Michigan State in 98.
Yeah, please don't remind me of that game, Mark. Please don't remind me of 98 loss to Michigan State. That's a bitter, bitter wound.
It is.
Yeah, I mean, I will say this, though. What's interesting about the Day era is 3 plays now are kind of the difference makers, aren't they, Mark? We talked about the interception against Clemson, the missed field goal against Georgia, and then the interception this year. I mean, how big is that? 3 plays, you flip a couple of those plays, how different is that era?
Oh, it's enormous.
Right?
He goes to a national championship game in 2019. They probably don't win, but they could have won. Our last caller was talking about that LSU team not being infallible, and Ohio State was the best or second best team in the country that year. And then, yeah, of course, Georgia, if you could take back one play,
yeah,
that's the one that you take back because they're going to just skull drag TCU all over the field, not by 58 points, but shoot, throw TCU 30 points and it's still a 4-touchdown win. And then, yeah, there was some work to be done when Kyle McCord threw that interception. They still had some field to cover, but they were down around the 35.
the 35, Harrison catches that ball at like inside the 20, and they got 15 seconds to go, in and around that amount of time. That's still with Marvin Harrison, you got a legitimate chance to win
Sure.
that game. I mean, I mean, we had, Todd Beckman met Steve Bellisari as our quarterback this year, and it wasn't great. You know, I always said they should drop the Bella in Steve Bellisari's name and just call him Sorry because he was pathetic. But I digress.
Well, the Buckeyes kept trotting him out there.
He was bad, man. Yeah, the end of the Cooper era with Bellisari at quarterback. Him and Stan Jackson. Wow. Talk about two of the worst quarterbacks I'd seen. But yeah, I mean, but interesting enough, you could say the same thing about the Cooper era. If Sean Springs doesn't slip, or if Jermaine hits Boston in a corner of the end zone, in the end against Sparty, you flip a couple of those plays. How much is history different?
Oh yeah, Cooper's tenure could be so much different on the back of just a couple plays. Sure, his legacy would be completely different.
Yeah, I mean but that's the one thing I'll say about the Day era. I mean, I think he's done some good things. I mean, so far. I mean, the recruiting is still good. I think, as people say, people need to remind themselves that he's a first-time coach, and he's had these mistakes. And you guys have talked about this on Buckeye Show and on other podcasts. He's had these misses on building his coaching staff. To be fair, Harbaugh had mistakes on building his coaching staff. How many the team up north fans wanted Don Brown? They should have wanted Don Brown gone a long time ago as their defensive coordinator. You know what I mean? And he kept him for like forever, you know. And Day made the same mistake by hiring like Kerry Combs as his defensive coordinator after Hafley left. And I
Yeah.
think that
Oof.
that's what hurt him, Mark. He expected to have Jeff Hafley for longer than 1 year.
Yeah, and that was brought up on our live stream today. Yep.
What do you think of O'Brien taking that job, Mark?
I think so. At first, I thought that it was his job for the taking. Now it sounds more like Boston College has to make a decision, and whether they're going to go the cheap route or go for the gusto and Bill O'Brien. I think that if I'm him, he's just going to make more money as a head coach, and he's going to be in the Power Five. I think that he wants to see some kind of commitment out of this football program to give him something to go on to compete. He's in a place of power in this negotiation process. He's had NFL jobs and a major college job that's well beyond Boston College. I think he can go in there demanding some things and some proof that they're going to back him and give him some support.
No, I mean, listen, I think that Day, as I talked about, missed Kevin Wilson this year. I think a lot of Buckeye people have talked about that. They need that like experienced guy in the booth to kind of help out, I think. Now, I don't think that I still think O'Brien would be coming in. I really do think he'd just be coming in and running Ryan Day's offense, to be fair.
And that's okay.
Yeah.
That's okay. Ryan Day can no longer call plays and run one of the largest football programs in the country. I just don't think he can do it. And every time that was brought to his attention this week, he still kind of holds on to, yeah, that's difficult to do, but it can be done.
Right. Well, even Urban,
it can be. Yes, he's done it.
Well, Urban questioned it when he took the job. Urban says, he thought that was a big undertaking for him to take on the play calling. And what have we seen in the playoff era? No coach has won a national title calling his own play since Jimbo did it with the Jameis Winston team in 2013. So no team in the playoff era has done it with the coach calling the plays. And it is a big deal. Don't get me wrong. By the way, nobody talks about the fact that Urban had misses on assistants too. You know, I mean, he hired Bill Davis, his best buddy, to coach linebackers for 3 years, and he was terrible at it. He hired those idiots, Ed Warner and Tim Beck, to run an offense with Ezekiel Elliott, Michael Thomas, Braxton Miller, Curtis Samuel, a bunch of NFL players, and those guys were terrible and pissed away the most talented roster in the country in 2015.
Yeah, I don't know that Tim Beck was that bad. I think he's shown us since that job that he's done a pretty decent job in other places.
Well, I mean, maybe it was more Ed Warner that year. I don't know, Mark, but that was always the one thing about that team is if Tom Herman would have stayed one more year,
Yeah,
but did want to move up.
I hear you.
All right, my friend, it's always a play. Hey, you let the Walmarts know if they want to get together, redo and by the way, JT got the first down, so don't worry about it. But if we can get together on that, Mark, you let me know. And you're soon to be well, it's not going to be your largest fan base for a while. Once they go back to 7-5, 8-4, and their coach gets fired in 3 years, we'll find you some Ohio State fans, some real diehards to become part of this channel, Mark. Don't worry about it.
Bring them on. We welcome everyone. Thank you, David.
Friend. Take care.
Good to see you.
Yep. Bye-bye.
We are going to dive into some ridiculousness on social media, but we got another call coming in. We got Chris on the line. Chris, how you doing tonight?
Good. How are you, Mark?
I am doing just fine.
Oh, I don't mean to nitpick. David Greenshield said something about Larry Brown coaching in the NFL, but I know what he meant. But
yeah, he meant professionally.
But he said they both coached in the NFL. I mean, that's kind of I don't know, whatever. But not to nitpick, but that's kind of
yeah. Well, it's nitpicking.
Okay. Well,
we know that if somebody's bringing up Larry Brown, he obviously knows that he coached in the NBA. Otherwise, he would not be bringing him up.
No, I understand, but I mean, I'm a little bit cautious, I guess, a little bit, Mark, because I kind of think that some people can paint a picture. However, I mean, not to criticize the idea of it, but I mean, don't get me wrong. I think I make more mistakes probably than anybody added together, but we got to be kind of careful. I think how we present facts, I guess. Not that it matters. I mean, this is your show. I mean, if you don't have an objection to it, I guess that's fine. But I mean,
what am I supposed to have an objection to?
Well, I can just say something that's wrong and you agree with it.
Somebody who said NFL instead of NBA.
No, he said
anybody listening knows exactly what he was talking about.
No, he said they both coached in the NFL. Well, okay. Well, that's news to me. Whatever. I mean, that's fine. I understood what he meant, but
exactly. You understood what he meant.
That's fine. And I'm not trying to throw him under the bus. He's a good guy. I like David. He's a good guy. I like him. He's a good guy.
If there was any other indication in the conversation that he didn't know who Larry Brown was, that would be one thing. But he brought up Larry Brown, so he clearly knows who Larry Brown is.
I mean, you don't agree that sometimes when people, it's like it throws me back. It's like I have to think about it. I saw a television show not too long ago. It was Katie Tur. She said something about Donald Trump, and when she meant to say Joe Biden, and it's like it throws you off your game a little bit. You have to go like, oh, okay, she meant Joe Biden. You know what I mean? It's like there's nothing wrong with it. It's just that it kind of throws you off your game a little bit from what you're trying to. I'm not trying to pick on David. I'm trying to elevate your show. I know I'm not the one to do it, I guess, but I don't know.
Anyway, Chris, that you can help us elevate this show, I am all for. We need to elevate this show. That's for sure.
There was one thing, and not again to nitpick, Mark, but you keep kind of throwing Texas Christian under the bus a little bit, in my opinion. Oh, they got beat so bad they would have lost. I don't know that it really matters because they were there. I mean, they did something I think that we should be like proud of. I mean, and I don't even really have any allegiance to Texas Christian, but they got beat so bad they should never show up again. Sort of thing.
I didn't say anything like that.
Well, you indicated something about if they.
I never said that they should never show up again. If they win the games that are required for them to make the playoffs and reach the national championship game, Texas Christian, let me just say one thing, Chris. If TCU won whatever games were required next season here in 2024 in the regular season and in the playoff to reach a national championship game, that's well and good and fair and square. I would not be sitting here saying they don't belong in the national championship game.
That's even my point. doesn't that mean they were arguably the second best team? I don't care if they got beat 500-0. I mean, aren't they arguably the second best team, even no matter how bad they got beat? Or am I wrong about that?
Oh, you can make that argument.
Okay. I'm not even sure I agree with that, but I'm just saying.
Well, I don't agree with it.
By 58 doesn't necessarily all of a sudden throw, they suck. Now they suck, I guess.
Oh, I didn't say they sucked. I said that Ohio State would have skull dragged them across the field,
well,
similar to Georgia. But
yeah,
that can't be proven.
That's possible. I mean, I'm not going to even say you're wrong about that. It's very possible, but
yeah, I can't prove that.
Well, all I know is they beat Michigan, and it's like,
they did. They beat them fair and square.
Fairly easily, in my opinion.
Easily?
Other people don't share that opinion, but
I don't know that they beat them easily.
Well, it seemed like every time Michigan, it seemed like they had the answer every time. I'm not so sure even if those two plays that supposedly went against them. I mean, yeah, it's probably enough to turn the tide of it. I'm not even saying that, but I don't think it was like, oh, well, those two plays decided the game. And you said something about Clemson and Ohio State, like those. I remember watching that game and I kind of wondered myself. I mean, there was that one, I guess, where Ohio State actually scored it. That would have probably changed the outcome. I agree with that. But I don't know. It was like a fumble or something. I don't remember exactly. The ball was on the, he dropped the ball or something. And then Ohio State returned it for a touchdown. And yeah, I think a play like that probably changes the outcome. But it was questionable about whether or not he actually wasn't, I don't know what the rule is, so I can't really rule on it. But I would think that, if Ohio State actually was the best team, I think they could maybe overcome some of those things. Am I wrong to even suggest it, or?
No, I agree with that. I think both things can be true. I believe that the officials made some bad mistakes in that game that cost Ohio State. However, they still had the opportunity to win the game and they blew it. Well, I don't in any way disparage Clemson. They played a great game and they played well in the clutch and they made the plays to win the game.
They probably were a better team than Clemson. I'll even admit that. I don't know that Clemson was necessarily a better team than Ohio State, but I don't know what you can do about it, though. I mean, if you don't beat them, then I don't even know what to say about it either. I mean, you have the opportunity, and I guess if you want to blame the official for the fact the game didn't turn out the way you want to, I guess you can try doing that, I guess, but I don't know. I mean, I guess I'm just confused about why in one case it's like, oh, and the other thing I was going to mention, because I think it's kind of somewhat relevant. I mean, yeah, I didn't like the way Texas Christian played against Georgia either, but it's still one loss. It's like, you can say, oh, well, that proves that Ohio State was, I don't think it proves anything. You say it proves that Ohio State was a better team.
I didn't say that. You do not listen to me sometimes, Chris. I said the exact opposite not more than 30 seconds ago. I said it doesn't prove anything. I said, in my opinion, I believe Ohio State would have whipped TCU, but I can't prove that. That was my exact phrasing. That cannot be proven. And here you are 30 seconds later telling me that I said that it's proven that Ohio State would have beat TCU. No, it's not what I said.
Well, there was, not to go back on this, some of this stuff doesn't really matter, but in 2014, you had two teams with one loss. How can you say, I'm not even saying that you're saying it, but do for sure that Texas Christian would, and I kind of suspect they probably would have lost to Ohio State, but, they never played each other. So what's the point of a playoff if it doesn't include everybody? It's kind of my point. In 2014?
Absolutely. I'm right there with you. And when you say everybody, who's everybody?
Well, I mean, you might not agree with this, and I know some people probably don't share my opinion, but I suspect that the four best teams probably should have included Texas Christian. I don't know exactly why they weren't represented. I really have no idea. I can kind of understand the thinking behind it.
I'll give you two reasons why not. Because their conference could not decide who the conference champion was, and they did not play a conference championship game. So they had one less data point, and they also were not a clear conference champion.
Well, they probably were second to Baylor, but I don't know. I just, because they played Baylor.
I'm not saying they were second to Baylor. I'm just saying that they tied for a conference championship. And since the Big 12 did not have a conference championship game, they did not have one champion.
But a tiebreaker probably wouldn't that have favored the other team? I'm guessing it probably would have.
Yes, Baylor beat TCU.
That's my point. I mean, yeah, you could say it's a co-championship.
So why don't we argue that Baylor should have been in the playoff?
Well, I don't know. I don't even know what to say about it. I just, in my opinion, the 4 best teams would have included, and it just is my opinion again, and it's not based just on what I think, but if it would have been up to me, I think I would have maybe included Texas Christian, not Baylor, and then not Florida State either. That's just my opinion, though. I mean, it's not like I know. I'm just saying that's my opinion.
Even though Florida State went undefeated, and you're usually on here telling us that it doesn't matter how much you win games by.
Well, no, I mean, actually, in my opinion, I think if you're undefeated, you probably should be in there represented somewhere, but I don't like a playoff, so I don't know what to say about it. I just, that's not my favorite. I don't really agree with the way the playoff selects teams anyway.
Chris, do you have anything to say about Ohio State or Michigan?
Well, yeah. Humus Hero, I mean, to his credit, I don't think he's not putting lies out there, but it's kind of interesting. 2 of the seasons he says that Ohio State was a consensus champion or whatever it was, included games that they didn't beat TCU. I mean, 2 seasons. I mean, at some point, I think you're going to have to own up to the fact that you can't get past somebody to win a title. Yeah, I'm hanging my hat on TCU, but if you can't beat them, you have to kind of show you can do it. And you say, oh, Ohio State, well, show that you can do it, and then I'll agree with you. I mean, I know they played that one game. What year was it? Maybe you can help me figure it out. They played in Texas Arlington.
Yeah, 2018.
Yeah, and I think Ohio State won fairly easily. I mean, it wasn't really a close game, but so they, in my opinion, that kind of determined. I like to be fair, so I'm like, well, that probably showed, all things being equal, that probably showed that Ohio State would have beaten Texas Christian in 2000. Because I try to be fair. I'm like, well, that probably showed that that's the better team is Ohio State. Because if you can't beat them, but it's like you can't claim titles where you can't beat a team and say, okay, well, we know that Texas Christian probably wouldn't have beaten them in a title game or whatever. So that shows. I mean, how do you know that? You don't. But that's fine. I mean,
no, we don't know. I don't know what comment you're talking about that Hummus Hero made about Ohio State and TCU.
Just giving them credit for 7 titles, which if you want to count them, that's fine. But 2 seasons in which they couldn't beat TCU. I mean, whatever you want to say.
They couldn't beat them. They didn't play them.
Yeah, they did.
What are you talking about? What years are you talking about?
57 and 61.
Oh, we're going back to 1957 and 61. Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that's 2 seasons they didn't beat them. So I don't know what you do. You say, okay, well, we just won't count those games. That's what I think the argument. That's why I don't like playoffs. It's like, oh, well, we won't count the games that didn't really lead up to the championship game. We're just going to count. It's kind of like, it's the same argument, I guess, that goes with the Super Bowl. You have I don't know what team you can put in there, but the one game determines everything. Why is that the rule? I mean, I'd like you to explain that to me sometime.
Well, there are teams that have won national championships and lost the game.
I understand that. I'm not trying to take anything away from Ohio State, by the way. That's not my MO. That's not who I am as a person. I don't do that. But, and then the other one was 2002 where it went into overtime. In my opinion, that's a tie. But I know that you don't share my opinion, but the game's 60 minutes long. You can do whatever you want in overtime and flip a coin or
it's a tie?
Sure.
No, it's not a tie. They got rid of ties. They play overtime now.
Well, even with an overtime, there was a disputed. I mean, you can even say with overtime.
Oh, well, that's a different argument. There was a disputed play, sure. But Ohio State won the game in overtime.
Well, they won the game in overtime, but I'm not sure that really matters. I mean, in my opinion,
of course it matters.
Well, but let's just pretend that gone the other way. You'd probably be giving me a different tune now. You'd be saying, well, it had to go to overtime. That's why Ohio State didn't beat Miami. If the play wouldn't have. I mean, come on, be fair about
Chris, you do realize that we have a national champion right now in Michigan that won a playoff game in overtime. Therefore, you're telling us that game should have been a tie. Then how do you determine anything if those games are ties?
My argument is they should have played Washington in the Rose Bowl. And I know you can say that we already kind of know, but I don't think we do know. I think when you're talking a playoff, that changes the dynamic. It really does. I don't, we know that would have been a Michigan win because they beat Washington in the playoffs. I don't know that we really do know. I think that's kind of my point. Oh, we know because they beat them in the playoff. Well, that doesn't necessarily mean anything, in my opinion. I mean, yeah, it means that they might have won and they maybe have the advantage, and it's possible they probably do anyway, but it doesn't necessarily mean that they absolutely are going to beat them in the Rose Bowl. That's why I don't like playoffs. I don't think playoffs work. I really don't like them at all. But, I mean, that's just my opinion. You don't have to share it. It's fine. I don't think it works. I really don't. And then you said something about Don't lie to me. You said you wanted like a 16-team playoff in '84. Well, what would that have done? I don't even know what that would have. You said you wrote like 1,000-word exposition or something about it.
Yes.
Well, what good would that have done? Even if we would have gotten one, what would that have done?
What good would that have done?
Yeah.
Well, when you're playing a playoff, those teams are playing each other to determine a champion. That's what it does.
Well, they're not doing it in the regular season. It's the regular season.
No, they're not doing it in the regular season. No,
well, I disagree. But
in 1984, BYU was not playing anyone who would have been anywhere close to sniffing a playoff. So no, the games are not played in the regular season to determine a championship.
Again, without like getting into all the nitty gritty and the brass tacks, whatever, I count at least. That was the thing I thought was kind of interesting. You know how, like I said, for the NCAA tournament, to advance to the championship game, for the basketball, obviously, you have to win 5 elimination games, right, to even get there.
Yes.
Well, I think I can count at least 5 games that BYU won in '84 that might count like as eliminate. Might not agree with the way I go about.
No, I don't agree with it because BYU did not play any teams in 1984 that would have been in a 16-team playoff. None.
No,
Zero.
I'm talking about circumstantial evidence. It's not direct, like to the. I know that the playoff comes in the postseason. Don't get me wrong. I understand all that, but. And so I kind of know what you're saying. You're saying like if it was in the postseason, they couldn't have beaten, and you're probably right about that, by the way. They probably couldn't have beaten 5 or 6 teams or whatever it was that they probably couldn't have done it. But I'm not sure that really matters. Really, they only needed to beat one team. You know who it was? Washington. And they invited Washington, and what are they supposed to do? They invited Washington, and Washington said they didn't want to play. At that point, I don't know how much you can say it was about BYU. If they invite the team that's the best chance to beat BYU, and they say they don't want to play them, oh, we're going to punish BYU for something that Washington decides to do. That makes a whole lot of sense. I really think that's a real smart. What else are they supposed to do? I don't quite understand. Oh, and they had to play Michigan.
I have never stated that BYU needed to do anything different. They had no control over the situation.
Good. Because the other thing, and I already mentioned it, I mentioned it about 6 times. You can say whatever you want to about Michigan being, average or whatever. They were 6-6. I mean, I guess that is average. Yeah, okay, they're average. I'll even agree with that's even a fair argument. But they're about roughly comparing, and I know you can't compare one season to another really without kind of having to deal with all the different things that go along with it. But they're probably about as good as Northwestern was this last season, about average.
Okay.
You don't agree with that?
BYU to win a national championship beat a team that was roughly the equivalent of this year's Northwestern team.
I actually think Northwestern was better, but regardless, they're both 5-4. They're both 5-4 in conference. They were both kind of so-so in the regular season. Yeah, they beat a team about as good as Northwestern. That's who they beat.
All right, Chris. I don't think we're going anywhere tonight, but we appreciate your call.
All right, thanks, Mark. Have a good day.
Good night.
Thanks for my call.
All right. We found ourselves in 1984. That's a surprise. All right. Let's keep it moving here at the Voice of College Football again. Ohio State, Michigan Skull Session. 1984, Ohio State beat Michigan 28-6. They won the Big Ten Championship. They lost the Rose Bowl. Michigan had its worst season under Bo Schembechler. They lost the Holiday Bowl, of course, to the awarded national champion BYU. So that that makes the connection between 1984 and Ohio State and Michigan. And here's Jackson.
How you doing, Mark?
I'm good. How are you?
Doing all right. Just looking forward to talking a little bit about Ohio State, Michigan. Oh man, that's always fun to watch. A little bit of the Wolverines live on Tuesday night on Michigan football at the Voice College Football and Buckeyes live at Ohio State football, the Voice College Football with Mark Rogers, Tony Girdman, Kevin Noon from Buckeye Huddle, and Steve Hellwagon from Buttnuts 247.
You bet.
Yeah. I mean, I'll tell you right now, it's going to be interesting to see the state of the rivalry for the future for like the next, I want to say 5-10 years with Sharon Moore and Ryan Day. I'm looking forward to seeing what's happening. I just kind of feel like there's going to be another 10-year war.
Yeah. Michigan has righted the ship, and we'll see if Sharon Moore can keep it going. And there may be a 10-year war in play if he's able to be up to the challenge. He has a lot of coaching staff decisions to make that are going to be crucial to keep him on the upper trend.
Yeah, and 2024 is the best year for Ohio State to end that losing streak against Michigan. And they could definitely win the Big Ten. They've got the talent to do so. I mean, the OC situation, whether Bill O'Brien stays or leaves, they're gonna be fine. Because I remember watching a JR from the Big Ten huddle the other day, where he did the thing with John on the Ocho for Ohio State week, and they talked a little bit about the coaching candidates for OC if Bill O'Brien leaves. And two of them that really crossed my mind were Jason Candle from Toledo and Chip Kelly. And I've been kind of wondering, I wonder how that would turn out. I mean, Jason Candle, I think, would be better, but Chip Kelly, I guess we'll wait and see, because he was a mentor for Ryan Day, as we both know and all of us know. But I wonder how Chip Kelly's going to feel about working for his former protege.
Well, if he takes the job, then he should take that into consideration. So he shouldn't have an issue with it because he knows exactly what he's getting into. I just think Ryan Day is not going to be comfortable hiring somebody who doesn't have a vast offensive background at the level of Bill O'Brien, somebody with that kind of pull, that kind of weight. It's going to be difficult for him to find somebody like that. And that's why this is a key couple days for Ohio State football, because Bill O'Brien, I think, was a near perfect hire. But if they lose him, they're going to be scrambling a bit.
Yeah, but knowing the Buckeyes, I think they'll find a good candidate. I mean, they'll be all right. Because I mean, the Blue Bloods, they're always going to be fine, especially the ones in the SEC and Big Ten. They're always going to get the best coaching candidates out there. I'm just I do wish that Michigan Notre Dame did come back, but at the same time, the Michigan Texas game, that's pretty good. I'm excited about that game coming up.
Okay.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what Quinn Ewers and the Texas Longhorns do against that Michigan defense. It's going to be very interesting to see.
Yeah,
they'll probably
the games we want to see. For
yeah.
sure.
Oh man. And Ohio State, Oregon, that's going to be a great game. I can't believe that's a conference game still. I mean, not officially yet, but a few months from now, it will be.
Yes, it will be. Yes.
Yeah.
Oregon is joining the Big Ten. It will be a conference game. Absolutely.
Yeah.
All right, Jackson.
It's gonna be, well, that's about all I got for you tonight for the Ohio State Michigan Skull session, because I'm probably just going to tune into the Big 12 show, but at the same time, I'm tuning into the Skull session, of course, just kind of flip in between both.
There we go. All right, Jackson. Appreciate you being here.
Well, thank you for having me on. Stay safe, stay warm. Do not go outside with the cold weather.
All right. Let's keep it working here at the Voice of College Football. We've got no calls, but there's a few things I was going to hit during this deal. So this is quite amusing here. So I'm not aware of this individual until like today or yesterday, whenever this was, February 5th. So somebody reposted this on X. And so I saw this, and certainly all the numbers seem to be accurate. So I'm not going to question the numbers per se. But this individual, BB, whoever they are, double BB, okay, They are posting all the numbers of all the programs in the Big Ten with the 4 new members and how they have stacked up in the last 50 years. Okay, nothing wrong with that. And that's where they all stand. And he's got them ranked by wins, with Ohio State with 42 more wins in the last 50 years than Michigan. That's pretty decisive. 42 in 50 years. That's almost 1 per year. And then Nebraska and on down the line. So I certainly believe that there could have been more valid numbers. You know, there are all sorts of metrics that could be placed in a comparison over 50 years, for example. But to point out how many years it's been since the last national championship, when you've got posted in that column the national championships, if anyone's got half a brain and they can do any kind of math, okay. And then we've got 8+ win seasons, and we've got AP top 25 seasons. Okay, very valid. Okay, we're measuring 8+ win seasons, although over the span of 1974 all the way through 2023, we're talking about a 10-game season that became an 11-game season and a 12, and then the expanded playoffs and conference championship games. So the 8-win plateau, or the 8-win mark today versus years ago, is fairly different. AP top 25 seasons, so that shows that you are a good team, but not necessarily a national championship contender. So I just pointed out that I would like to see some different categories here. So I commented that if we raised the requirements to, let's say, 10 wins or 12-win seasons, or AP, not top 25 finishes, but top 10 or top 5 seasons, Ohio State then extends way beyond everybody else. And so then he added up the 10-win seasons, and Ohio State takes a 5-season lead. And makes the comment about shoots off the chart. And then I suppose that's this moron being clever and putting up a clown face. Of course, this idiot would not come on here and talk to me directly. I sent him a link to say, well, let's have the discussion like adults, like men. But of course, we've got a moron here who just wants to put up clown faces and who's too much of a coward to have a discussion. And of course, this is a Michigan-based site. I don't know anything about them, but I saw on his profile that it's a Michigan-based site. So notch that up to 11 win seasons. And as I stated, my original statement in response to that graph, and there's nothing wrong with the graphic. I'm just saying we can add different categories and look at it different ways. He definitely put together a graphic that was as kind to Michigan as you possibly could be during those 50 years. Because if you go to 11+ win seasons, then look at that. It's 22-7. You know, it's not comparable. It's not comparable. And then this is the biggest joke right here. This moron says, back to back to back, okay, living in the past. I guess that's a reference to me. Of course, he's shooting this back to me. Living in the past. He's the idiot that originally started the conversation by posting a chart about the last 50 years. So he starts the conversation by posting a chart about the last 50 seasons. And then when I point out a few things, I'm the one living in the past versus the moron that makes a chart about the last 50 seasons. Some of these people are so incredibly stupid. It's difficult to fathom. I'm a God-fearing man, and I simply refuse to believe that God made people this stupid. And then I'm also pointing out in the top 5 that Ohio State leads Michigan 22-12. Let's see. I think we had another back and forth. This I didn't quite understand. So we've got a number of folks here that show up from we love this site, Blue by 90. They've been good to us. Blue by 90, Justin Rowe, Tanner Wooten joins us on a regular basis. Justin Rowe has joined us a zillion times. So Blue by 90, really good people there. But I don't get it. Is this an anniversary of this or something? I think they posted just that this is a reminder. Yes. So that Ryan Day went off on Lou Holtz after the Notre Dame game, the 3rd week of the season. Like, I don't understand. Remember when Ryan Day wanted to fight an 86-year-old man after beating an incredibly mid Notre Dame team? Now, if Notre Dame's an incredibly mid team at 10-3, then again, Michigan's lived sub-mid for a long, long time. So I didn't even notice that part of it. Of course, Notre Dame's a mid team when they lose to Ohio State, but they're 10-3, and 10-3 would be better than how many Michigan teams in the last 30 years? Like almost all of them. And so I took exception to, and I don't care if this was Ryan Day or it could be Pete Carroll or it could be Kyle Whittingham or it could be Jim Harbaugh. He wanted to fight an 86-year-old man. Well, I thought maybe I need to listen to this comment again because it's been, I don't feast off of listening to comments from 5 months ago and listen to them over and over and over and over. I listened to it at the time. I made my comments at the time. Some of them were in defense of Ryan Day. Others were critical of Ryan Day because I actually have a brain that functions as a neutral, unbiased commentator. Because not everything Ryan Day says am I going to worship at his feet and say, this is the most amazing thing I've ever heard, nor am I going to just automatically criticize everything. I'm going to make my comments, which, again, in some ways, you could go back and watch the video. I stated, okay, I can understand Ryan Day making these statements on one hand, but on the other hand, why go there? Why call out an old man? So I watched it thinking, wow, did Ryan Day actually, was he that threatening to want to fight Lou Holtz? And then I listened to it and he stated, I'd like to know where Lou Holtz is right now. And those are fighting words. We have become this soft and pathetic in our society that those are fighting words. I'd like to know where Lou Holtz is right now, meaning Lou Holtz had derogatory things to say about my team. And he called us soft and all these other things. I just like to know where he is right now because we just beat this team that he said we were going to lose to. Pretty reasonable. So that being interpreted into wanting to fight the man, those are fighting words. Man, I think we all need to go back to the Old West or something because we don't know what fighting words are. We have become this soft and pathetic in this society that those are fighting words. Okay. All right. It is a bit ridiculous. All right. I do appreciate everyone being here at the Voice of College Football. I guess nobody's got any response to that. I would love to take some calls concerning any of that about the pathetic. I don't know who these people are. I don't want to publicize them unless you want to follow Double BB. And they obviously know nothing about college football. And I stated that at some point here. I let them know I don't know if you can see where I'm scrolling. I guess I'm going to have to, let's see here. I pointed out at some point, don't know what all this is that's on my feed. Jackson, appreciate you being here. Look at that. Yeah, I don't know what this is a response to. Oh, basically, so double BB must be the big house. There we go. Double BB, big house. I don't get that. Blue, big house. Anyway, 3 straight dominant victories for the Wolverines. And then I simply stated, and then he said any further back than that, he's stating that and showing the Winsipedia page that shows that Michigan has won the head-to-head series 61-51. They lead. All right. Well, first of all, any one that's going to call 2023 a dominant victory, you would have to certainly challenge their functioning brain. So let them know your football IQ is embarrassing. We can play this game for hours. Trust me, Ohio State has far more check marks. Yeah, if we want to go through all the various measurements of a program, any certainly the Michigan fans that we have here on our channel that are fair and balanced understand that Ohio State has many more check marks than Michigan does. Various measurements of football greatness. Then he says, Ryan Day, the current head coach, has virtually 0 of these so-called check marks, unless you include it was only a few plays, the bad weather. We played Georgia close. Yes. Yes, he's 1-3 against Michigan. Yes, he is. Jim Harbaugh's 3-5 against Ohio State. So, and I guess there's going to be a statue to be built for a coach that went 3-5 against their arch rival. So there we go. David coming in here. David, appreciate you being here. Of course, enjoyed the phone call. Mark, do yourself a favor. Stay away from the Team Up North sites. Most of those people were dropped on their heads as children. Well, there are certainly certain ones that are intelligent and others that aren't, just like Ohio State. I was going through some Facebook groups. This is what it's come to, basically, because I've determined that when I produce real football content, most of the time, that's not what people want to watch. They don't want to watch real football content. If I continue to produce the type of content that I enjoy, that I consider real football content, I'm not going to be doing this too much longer. So I've delved into the field of, the cesspool, as it were. Tice is saying, Mark, you're not neutral. Tice, call me and explain to me how I'm not neutral. With the understanding, of course, that you do understand, Tice, that nobody's neutral. That doesn't exist. Nobody's neutral. You get that, right? Nobody is. That's not a human condition that any of us have. We have emotions. We have blood running through our veins. We have a certain, even if I'm watching a Washington game that I could care less about who wins, I still have a bias there. There's still a bias based on my past experiences, based on what I value out of a football game or a football team. There is a bias there. So yes, it is a given. You are stating the obvious about every individual on the planet, Tice. I'm not neutral. I do my best to be neutral. And this could be proven through my rankings, I guarantee, I know this for a fact, that I rank Ohio State routinely lower than the national polls do. Now, I don't do that just to compensate for my bias. I don't do that just to do it. No, I rank Ohio State and everyone else where I believe they should be ranked. So as soon as football season hits, as soon as I rank Ohio State anywhere near number one, there's all sorts of criticisms that you're biased. And of course, those people are idiots because they don't, they either just showed up and they found out I root for Ohio State, so they assume I'm biased, or they've been watching a long time and it just hasn't connected with their brain. And they just want to perpetuate a notion that I've got to be biased. Well, of course I'm slightly biased, but I've reined that into about that much, to the point where a few videos ago, I had a lot of Ohio State fans after me. Yeah, Tice, again, please call me and explain this, because before my fandom was known, nobody, if I had the time, or if I had a staff, which, by the way, we will take some internships. So we had 2 interns about 5 years ago. I had 2 interns and they were exceptional. They were 2 of the smartest young people I've ever run into. So God bless me with 2 interns. I asked for interns, and maybe not the first 2. I may have rejected a couple, but 2 of the first people that showed up, I don't know what they're doing right now exactly. I believe I'm Facebook friends with one, but man, exceptionally smart, reliable, intelligent, nice, just genuinely nice people. And we worked it through their universities, so they got credit for their internships. So we will take some interns here at the Voice of College Football if you or somebody you know is interested. But at the time, I did not talk about who I rooted for. It was not out there. And Tice, this completely flies in the face of what you're stating right there. Nobody had any idea. Again, if I had interns, I would say, you know what? I want you to go back 5 years, 6 years, 7 years. I want you to comb through live streams and comments and all the things that were said about people guessing who I rooted for, people having no idea. That was the best indication that I was doing my job, at least in that way, regardless of what you think I know or don't know, or how awful I am, or whatever your evaluation of me. At least what Tice is saying is not accurate. It's accurate technically because nobody's neutral. So yes, I am a walking, functioning person. I'm a person that has a heart beating. So yes, I'm not neutral, just like you aren't and nobody is, but I'm as neutral as more than anybody. And sometimes people have some kind of criticism, or they make a comment about, you're an Ohio State fan and you're commenting on all this stuff. Well, understand that everyone you listen to, whether it's on the internet or the games, are you going to stop listening to anyone? You're not even going to listen to the games. The guys broadcasting the games are biased. They are. They root for a team. They like the team. And even if they don't, they still have a bias. Sorry about that. Don't know what happened there, but thank you for that, Jim. Appreciate you. I do my best. Not perfect. Yes. I could argue for Ohio State all night. Absolutely, I can. But I also say a lot of bad things about Ohio State. But it's kind of tough to say too many bad things about a team that's got the best winning percentage over the last 15 years, 20 years, 30 years, 50 years, 70 years. I think it would come out more if I rooted for Purdue. Mike's here. Good to see Mike. Did Mark just end the stream on that? No. I would not do that to you. That was me just kind of swiping by, and there you go. Yes, Mike, it's only Michigan fans and Jewish carpenters who are perfect. Absolutely. Absolutely. SEC football's here with a Hey Mark, go Vols. And it's fun having everyone here. So my intent here for the big Ohio State Michigan skull session was simply to say this is what's going on with Michigan football right now. This is what's going on with Ohio State. We ran down the various Michigan coaching searches and all the spots that they need to fill. Of course, join John Diadamo on the Michigan channel on Tuesday nights at 8:00 Eastern time. And we have posted 2 excellent Ohio State live streams over the last 2 days. So today was Buckeyes Live. So check that out over on the Ohio State channel. And then right here, we had a conversation with Bill Kurlick of Bucknuts. And Bill Kurlick is a bastion of knowledge. We had a great conversation. So check that out as well. And I also just wanted your feedback on always want your feedback on what type of content you want, but specifically concerning this rivalry, I would love to get your feedback on what kind of content you would like to see, because we intend to grow and expand and succeed, and we don't want to do anything else, but we may get to that point. So we want to be here for all of you. We enjoyed the conversation, even with people that call in that I argue with, that I don't agree with, and all that other business. I still enjoy those phone calls. Speaking of which, the Big Ten Live Show is Friday at 7 Eastern. We got the Big Ten Live Show. I got to line up some good guests for that. And of course, we're going to take your calls on the call-in line for the Big Ten Live Show. All right. Don't see anything else in the chat. Appreciate you all being here at the Voice of College Football. Keep it locked in here. We just ran through the Big 12 TV ratings and why I think nobody's going to watch Big 12 football this year. And our buddy Joey Foster was not too pleased with what I had to deliver, but I just tell the truth. So check out the Big 12 TV ratings video, because again, just telling the truth. And when you kill Oklahoma and Texas and you take them out of the TV ratings for the Big 12 from last year, it's ugly. Now, Colorado comes in, and of course, they were the ratings bonanza of college football last year. But I don't know that there's going to be quite the hype. Of course, it was Deion's first year. It was the first go around. It was the first big splash. And all the bandwagon fans are going to be jumped off. Gone, see ya, bye. So Colorado's still going to provide a ratings boost, no doubt, to the Big 12, because there's still going to be some hype and some vibe around Deion, but not anything close to last year. So the Big 12, yeah, again, is going to have some issues attracting viewers. They only had, again, watch the video. You'll look at the numbers, and then we're going to do the ACC, the Big 10, and the SEC, and you'll see clearly that there's no competition between these leagues, because what we tried to do, which was much more difficult this offseason than it was in previous off seasons, is when there was just a stable league and there was nobody coming in or out of the league, then you just look at the TV ratings as they stand. But what we did in looking at the Big 12 was we took the TV ratings from Arizona, Arizona State, Utah, and Colorado, and we eliminated the Oklahoma and Texas ratings unless they were playing an existing Big 12 team. And we tried to give an indication of what it's going to look like on TV for the Big 12 this fall. And again, it's not pretty. They lose 14 of their top 17 rated conference games, with Oklahoma and Texas leaving, meaning out of their top 17 rated games in conference play in the Big 12, 14 of the 17 involved Oklahoma or Texas. And of course, the number one game of the year in conference was OU and Texas, like it typically is. So you take all that away from the Big 12, and it's like, yeah. Only 12 of 41 Big 12 games that were nationally rated drew more than 1 million viewers. Now, once we look at the SEC and the Big Ten, that number's going to go to like 3/4 of those games. It's going to go, instead of 12 out of 41, it's going to be more like 30 out of 41. And those other 11 are going to be almost exclusively on the Big Ten network or the SEC network or maybe FS1. So you watch the Big Ten and the SEC. We do love our Big 12 fans. We're going to continue to cover the Big 12. We got a Big 12 show. We got a Big 12 show going on right now. So leave here, jump on over to the Big 12 channel. Please subscribe there. If you enjoy what we do here at the Voice of College Football, even if you hate the SEC and hate the Big 12, those are the two calls to action that I would have for you. Check out the SEC channel and the Big 12 channel. The links are in the description section of all the videos, including this one, and go over there and subscribe because it all works together. It's all a network. And if you enjoy what we do and you can support the other channels, the ones that are sub 1,000 subs, then you help us out considerably. So hang on just a second. I'm going to get you the link to the Big 12 show that's going on right now. And the Clemson show should be going on right now as well. Should be going on as well. So we got Joey and Shane doing our Big 12 show right now. And we've got Jordan and Tiger Paw Craven doing the Clemson show right now. Hopefully. I know that they had some technical issues. So now is the time to get over to the Big 12 channel. I am putting the link into the chat as we speak. Bingo, there it is. So check them out over on the Big 12 channel. Jim R., thank you so much for the comment. Everybody else, appreciate you being here at the Voice of College Football. And up next, I believe, will be ACC TV ratings. Then we'll hit the Big Ten and the SEC. And we'll also do our coaches rankings that I completely forgot about, but somebody reminded me. Oh, somebody sent a comment criticizing my coaches rankings, believing that they were this season's coaches rankings. But I said, you're watching last year's. So things change. All right. So we will get to that. All right. Ferris loves the Mac. Got it. Appreciate you being here at the Voice of College Football. Check out the Big 12 channel. It's going on right now live with the Big 12 Fan Zone. How about that? See you next time. And which would be the Big 10 live show Friday, 7 Eastern.